Hello, and welcome to the Passion Witch Project. I'm your host, Emily Steckel, energy healer, pharmacist, and passion witch. And on the show, we chat with folks who are leaning into what makes them wonderfully weird and living their passion. And today, we are joined by April Shewan, the Organized Octopus. I'll let her share a little bit more about what that means. But I'll preface this by saying that she is an extraordinary person with many years of experience as an acupuncturist who made a pivot into business coaching.
Yes.
Welcome, April.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
This is our second attempt. We're doing better this time.
Yes, we got this.
Amazing. So before we dive in, I'm going to ask you the hardest question.
Okay.
I don't know if you looked at the questions in advance.
Yes, a little bit.
A little bit.
Just
Perfect.
cheat.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love knowing how some
I was
people.
prepared.
Yeah. Some people want to know what they're getting into, and some people are like,
Yeah.
we're just
Like,
going
lay
to
it
go
on
with
me.
it. And I love that everybody's different.
Yeah.
Anyway, the question is, if you could be the best in the world at one thing, what would it be?
That, I'm so glad I actually did cheat, because those are the types of questions that throw me, because I will overthink them. And I'll be like, oh, the best. I mean, I want to be the best at this. And then I get this. But what I really think I want to be the best at is knowing when to pivot. Like knowing when to change course, not to, because that's a really hard one, right? We want to stick to something and try to see it through, but sometimes it is not working. And so having that flexibility is really important to me.
I love that. And I feel like it's very timely because we're making a little bit of a pivot now in terms of,
we're pivoting. My whole family's pivoting.
Yes.
We're pivoting to a whole different version of hemispheres. We're going to South America. We're going to a tiny little country called Uruguay. We are taking a family gap year for at least 15 months. I will still be working, but I'm the only one still working. And it's really, it's something we've been talking about for a really long time, and just everything aligned perfectly. I thought this would be something I wouldn't have the chance to do with both of my children because they were getting older. And we're going to go do this adventure.
That's so cool. Like, when was the seed of the idea planted? Or like, when did you kind of start thinking about this for your family?
So, I mean, way before I had a family, and not this particular country, but when I was 17, I was lucky enough to go with the people-to-people organization through China. And it was a very different China than it is now, but I was there for a month and it changed me. I realized there's this big, beautiful world out there of all these different things to see and taste and smell, and I wanted to give that to my kids, and I always thought, I want to, take my family and travel the world on a sailboat and just do that. But then even though I was a marine biologist way back in the day,
Were you?
Oh
my gosh,
I have a long
that.
history of weird jobs, but I get seasick. I get so seasick. And also you get bogged down in grown-up stuff, right? I thought, like, how would you have health insurance? How will they make friends? I don't know what I was thinking, but it ping-ponged around in my brain, and I realized, I think, 2020 showed a lot of us, life is really short. If there's something you want to do, you need to do it, because you don't know when, you might get too sick or injured, or your financial circumstances might change, somebody might need you. So we had this window of opportunity, and we're going to take it.
It's so extraordinary. And I think, we had started talking about this a little bit off air. The fact that you can do these big life changes, you can have these experiences that perhaps from the outside look a little bit wild, but to do it in a way that's, I don't know, like very methodical.
That's really what my business is.
Yeah.
Because I'm a business coach. I, help people with their businesses. But I started to think about it. I'd been an acupuncturist for 23 years, and I still love and believe in it, but I felt like that chapter of my life was coming to a close. I kind of had done everything I wanted to do professionally. I was really interested in helping particularly women business owners, but just solopreneurs, people with a passion, do what they wanted. I had a lot of experience of seeing what worked and what did not work over the years, and I started to think, okay, I can detach myself from being fixed geographically. I can do this other part of what I like, and I can get paid for it. I can help people, and we can go someplace else and just see something else. And so, about 5 or 6 years ago, I started, before I even told anybody, I was just quietly planning this. And then a couple of years ago, I started saying it out loud. And when you do that, you feel like the little kid who, somebody dared them to do something and you're like, I'm going to go do it. And then it's time. You're like, oh no, all these people know that I'm going to do this thing and now I have to do it.
But I think we do that for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? Because it helps to have external accountability sometimes,
absolutely.
right? It's like you plant your own seeds.
Right. People say to me all the time, you're so brave. And I think this feels brave, but it's more logistics. The brave thing was being like, okay, we are going to do this, and saying that to other people.
Yes. Even though they may not understand, or they may think, gosh, that's wild. I would never do that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so everybody says to me, oh, you've got like two camps, like, oh, I always want to do that, or, oh, that's interesting. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah, but it's like, it sounds like it's been there in your soul for a long time.
Has.
Yeah.
Wanderlust.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. What made you decide in Uruguay?
It ticked a lot of boxes because it's very easy for a lot of countries to be a digital nomad, but you can't stay that long, and you have to bounce around, and we have, adult well, they're almost adults, almost hatched children, they're 18 and 20.
They're almost ready to fledge.
Right, and a dog, and this business, it needed to have good infrastructure, so we needed a safe, stable place with good internet that would let us stay, and I needed to like the weather. I really don't want to be in the winter all the time in this frozen tundra anymore. So we just started looking, and when you start to narrow that down, there's not a lot of countries that will let you do that. So
interesting. So it was a methodical decision.
Yes.
I love that. I mean, there's space for all ways of going about it, but I think for folks who are maybe have found safety and structure in home in kind of our more traditional institutions, ways of being, I think it's nice to, when they do start to get the curiosity, the wanderlust, like you can do it without totally destabilizing.
Absolutely.
You can make a big pivot.
And I think, because the one question people ask me constantly is, well, what about healthcare? And that was also important. I think it, for certain demographics, is really important to have, access to good doctors. And so that also was something that worked for us. But to your point, this country won't work for everybody, right? Other people have different needs. And so, somebody who's 25 years old and bebopping around all by themselves, maybe the 90-day thing works great for them because they want to see a whole bunch of different countries. Maybe they hate the ocean and they want to be at the desert. You just have to think through what your personal needs are when you go investigating these things. Yeah.
I've been thinking about how your approach to some of these things, like to your coaching, to your travel plans and kind of like life trajectory, how it's connected to your work as an acupuncturist. When I think about acupuncture, it's incisive, right? It is precise. It is getting right to the point, literally.
Literally.
So how do you feel it's all connected? I'm so curious.
I think we take ourselves with us, right, through every form of our being. And so, way back when I was a marine biologist, I thought about things in systems, and I brought that with me as an acupuncturist. I started to think, what's the big picture here, and what's our plan for helping this person? And it's the same, basically, I went from diagnosing people to businesses, right? And it's the same concept. It's what is happening cohesively with this, and how do we think about this systematically to help this business? And it's the same. I use this organizational system called Trello, and I have a Trello board for my business. I have one for my move, because it's the same approach, and it was the same with acupuncture.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't know a lot about acupuncture. I just had my first experience with ear acupuncture the other day, which was awesome. Yeah. I learned a lot of things about myself. Like, I enjoyed that little pinch at first. I was like, oh, there's something nice about that. And then and then the deep relaxation.
Super relaxing.
But I wonder, like, are you open to sharing a little bit with our viewers just about what drew you to acupuncture? Because it's interesting.
So I, way back when I was a biology major,
Yeah.
I wanted, back then, you just went to med school. That's what you
Right.
did if you were a bio major for the most part, or you became a professor. And I had a doctor talk me out of it. She said, listen, it's really difficult to be a good mom and a good doctor because trying to balance all of it is very frustrating. She's very frustrated with the medical system. This is a long time ago. And I started to think about that, but I still wanted that in my life, and I started researching, and I am an avid gardener. I love nature. I love plants. I loved the herbal part of acupuncture, but I also loved it is very deliberate in how they diagnose. It is systematic in how they take things and go, okay, this symptom means this, and I loved that about it. So I actually wanted to go into research. I never thought I would practice, and but back then you had to get a master's before you get your PhD, and so that was the only way. And somewhere around year 2, I fell in love with it. I just thought, this is magic. I feel like I have magic hands, and I could be like the mage I played in the video games. I could be a healer, and I loved being that.
Yeah, I wonder, were there moments when that stand out in your memory of that time when a client like had a breakthrough or had something shift?
I mean, that not a week went by where my mind wasn't blown at all. But I think one of the key memories I had was I had a fertility client, one of my original ones, and I remember like 11 years later looking out my clinic window and seeing, the product of that walk by. Like, she was 11 at that time. Think, oh my goodness, you got so big. And that's to be part of that person's story, and that magical journey she took was amazing. And it wasn't just that, people who maybe had pain and they'd had it for so long and they didn't have it anymore, whether it emotional or physical. So it was a privilege to be part of people's stories that whole time.
I love that. I'm wondering too, I like thinking about this a little bit, like the tarot, the sword of truth, right? Right, because with the needles, it's kind of a more visual metaphor, right? You're actually using kind of something sharp. And I suspect that in your work now with coaching, it's a more verbal sword, right? Do you find there are moments when you've just found exactly the right language, exactly the right energetic point for your...
I mean, this is really where going into acupuncture for so long made me very good at having difficult conversations, right? And so I will be listening to people and always think, what's the actual problem here? What is happening? And usually the big problem people have is they don't know how to talk about their business. And so I have to gently be like, that's beautiful, nobody knows what you mean. And so we have to use language that people will understand or articulate it in that way. I also, because I'm super nerdy, I created a whole framework of these little characters. If you go to my website, the Organized Octopus, you'll see them. And they represent the different struggles that people have for mindset things in their business, because I wanted to have these, when you talk about things like people pleasing and perfectionism, everybody will say to me, okay, but I've been to therapy for that. Like, how are you going to help me? And so we created these little bosses that people will battle like in a video game, because it gives them a visual of what they're up against, but it also takes the pressure down. I'm always, being a business, it's so stressful. And I'm always just like, okay, how do we help you feel calmer and more confident without worrying too much about, your perfectionism? It's like, okay, if we can turn that into a unicorn, it could be tongue-in-cheek for you to be like, okay, yeah, that all right, I'm doing that thing again.
Yeah, the concept of play is so freeing, right? When we when we can step just enough away from our challenges, our perceived obstacles and see them as like, oh, something here that we can just play with.
And that's what I wanted it, because usually this is their passion. This is their dream that they finally found the bravery in themselves to do. And I want to honor that in a way that is, shows how important it is for them, but also to make it fun. I mean, they went into this probably because they didn't like what they were doing.
Yeah.
They wanted some fun back in their life.
Yeah, totally. Are there particular clients where, like, that you'd be open to sharing stories about where you're able to see the transformation from, maybe there's an absence of joy, or like we're just feeling kind of downtrodden, and then to see the play return?
I mean, I could tell you a million. I'll use myself as an example because I think it's really important for people to understand. My favorite story is about networking. I was terrified of it, which is ridiculous, right? Because I'm here talking to you, right? But my first networking event, I drove 45 minutes through Boston traffic. I did not go in the door. I sat in the parking lot. I was terrified. And it took me an entire year, because there was no social media back then.
Right,
you had to go to the place to meet the people. And a year went by, and I got brave enough to go in, and then I ran to the back and I hid behind a potted plant and I pretended to be staff. Like I was directing people, like, oh, they're all back there. And then, over time, I got better at it. And now networking is my absolute favorite thing. And I teach people how to do it more effectively because I was so scared of it. But I think it shows all of these things are surmountable.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. When you first had, plucked up the courage to have a conversation with a stranger about your work, what was that like?
I think the big difference for me, it wasn't about that. It wasn't about becoming brave. It was about becoming brave enough to be myself.
Yes. Oh, of course.
Like back then, I would not have been in my Mrs. Frizzle dress. I would have been in what I would have called my professional lady dress. And I wouldn't have felt like me, and so I wouldn't have talked like me, and then I couldn't connect with people. And now I can just be me, and when I go places, I genuinely meet people I enjoy. Like, we met each other, right? Like, I genuinely like the people I'm talking to. And I think that's the biggest thing, is helping people overcome that idea that they have to be somebody that they aren't. So there's a very big difference between being the professional version of yourself, but still yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not in my sweatpants, right? I got dressed up for you today.
Yes, exactly. I know, and I think too, it can sometimes take a little time to find what that is.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And we can allow for that to happen in its own time.
For so many of us, we've been told our whole lives to hide who that person is. You said, being your weird self is hard.
It's really hard. Yeah. Before we got on air, we started talking about the idea of stories, of how our stories are, I think they're medicine. How do you feel your story has impacted your work, has impacted your clients? Like, how does it factor in?
I think it was a long time I learned from other people's stories. I used to say, and I still think about it, that I wanted to write a book called Lessons I Learned from My Patients, because
love that.
Right? Because I learned so much from watching people and the things that they wish they had done different, or the things they were so proud of. And I think right now what's important for me is getting to be that for somebody else, to show other people you can do the thing. That's my big thing I'm trying to get across to people, is you can do the thing. In my case, my thing is moving to a different hemisphere and experiencing life, but for somebody else, the thing might be opening a business or doing public speaking or learning to bowl, like whatever their thing is, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I wonder, I suspect you have thoughts about this, but if you'd rather not share, I understand that. How do you feel the structure of our economy is shifting as we move forward?
I think I'm less scared of it than a lot of people, because I owned a business through multiple booms and collapses of
Yeah.
economies, and so it doesn't frighten me as much as it does a lot of people, but that's where the whole pivot thing comes in. If you had a perfect 5-year plan and the economy doesn't match your 5-year plan, you need to shift it, and you have to be realistic about that. So I think that is sort of my superpower, is understanding how to honor somebody's dream but root it in the reality of what we're doing. And so you are seeing a lot of that now, where people are scared. And the thing I always think about is, if you look at some of the biggest transition times, a lot of businesses failed, but a lot succeeded and came up from that. And it's one of those cases where you just have to really think, how does this play into what my current reality is?
Yeah. I'm wondering, I mean, I very much feel like I'm in an echo chamber because I surround myself with a lot of people, like women especially, who are starting businesses, who are into holistic wellness. And so it might just be my very kind of limited worldview. But I wonder, do you think we're moving toward a system where there are more kind of like individuals doing their passion work that isn't necessarily part of a larger institution? Like, do you think that we're in a period of flux there?
I think I'm probably obviously in the same echo chamber with you, but I do think data-wise we're probably starting to see, and I know that after 2020 there was some data about that, about people opening up their own business or leaving corporate or getting laid off and changing direction. I think this might be the new go back to school, because that was the go-to plan back in the day. I'll just go back to school. And now people are like, well, that's really expensive. I don't want to do that. And so you see people just going for it.
Yeah.
And I think for the first time in my business career, I am seeing more women, and that lights me up, because women tend to invest more into the communities they're in. They tend to build communities, and that therefore helps other women in business, and it makes it so much easier for all of us.
Yeah, the network, right? You talk about networking. I think like the way I understand the network now is so different than I did initially, right? We all have the capacity to build it, to grow it, right? And in so doing, I think back to, I think it was Jesus who said, "Rising tide lifts all ships."
Yes.
Right. This idea that we all grow together. We can make this better together.
Right. And that's, when I think about women business owners, the one thing I hear over and over that holds women back is their fear of sounding salesy or a fear of selling. And what I always say to them is, don't think about it as selling. Think about it as offering this amazing thing you have that somebody needs. Because if you genuinely have a product or a service that you believe is a benefit, people have to hear about it. They're not going to hear it if you don't tell them. You need to tell them.
Absolutely. This is something I need to hear. So I'm excited that you're bringing it up. But like, are there particular things that you encourage people to say, or is there language that you empower people to choose when they're, talking about their work in that way?
Usually what I'll tell people in the beginning is just start to think of it like that. Picture the person. People talk a lot about their ideal client, and I think of it more as, like, I'll use my business as an example. I think about a woman who decided to start something, whether she's selling cupcakes or, life insurance. It doesn't matter. She has decided to do this thing, and she's home, and she's scared, and she doesn't know how to talk about it, and she feels like sales are icky, and so she is, maybe cleaning up her website, or she's posting on social, but she's not really talking about it. And I desperately want to help her, because I desperately want her dream to come true. So when I think about the language I use in my marketing, it's directly for her, and it's coming from a place of, if I don't reach her, I can't help her. And that's what I tell everybody, is to just sit with that and really picture who that person is and how badly you want to help them. And then it comes from a beautiful, clean place. It's not selling, it's helping.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's another kind of like shift in how we might think about the way our economy functions, right? Less like push, right? You need this, and let me use all of those tactics, the fear and the, right? Yeah. And instead, like, let's bring a little bit of health to that system. Right. A little bit of,
Because if you take your needs out of it and you think about it as, most of us went into this, even the person selling their cupcakes, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe they solved a problem. Maybe they thought, I love blue cupcakes and I want to sell them to other people who love blue cupcakes, whatever. Maybe she couldn't find her blue cupcakes. It sounds absurd, but every business has a story. And if the person keeps their reason and their why and their story in there, they can find the other people who need them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, who should come find you?
Everybody, no. Solopreneurs, those are my favorite people. Usually they're in the first 5 years of business. In a perfect world, they'd find me in the beginning, but they don't. It's usually year 2, year 3, they got stuck somewhere. Usually they get stuck because they hustled themselves to where they are and there's no more hours in the day. And so they need some help scaling that up. Or they're static in their income flow and they don't know how, they're scared to sell. They're scared to go to networking, or they go to networking, they don't know how to do that in a way that makes sense. Like those are my people. And I tell everybody, if most strategy calls are a sales call, and that's not what they are for me. It's really just me listening, and you get to talk about yourself and your business for an hour. Like, who doesn't want that? Just have somebody really nice listen to them,
Yeah, absolutely true. I know. I feel like we could all use a little bit more of that in our lives.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the approach I bring to it is just, I've been there, and so I want to hear your story.
Yeah. Wonderful, April. Well, great. How can folks find you if they're interested in working with you?
The Organized Octopus is my website, theorganizedoctopus.com. See a little octopus here, so you can remember.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice.
So
it's
cute,
so
right?
cute. Where did you find that?
It's
a fork?
It is a fork. I got this at the Merrimack outlets in like the little New Hampshire craft thing. You too can have a little octopus, which I thought was adorable. But yeah, and the Organized Octopus. And I always tell people, take the quiz on the website. You can see like what your little boss is, or just book a strategy call and you get to chat with me.
Oh, beautiful. I want to take that quiz. I want to know who my little boss is.
I mean, we all... full disclosure, we all have
all.
We're battling all of them.
Of course,
but
naturally.
There's usually one that is the bigger problem.
Yeah. Can't wait to find out.
Just let me know how it goes.
Yeah, I will. Awesome, April. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you, viewers. We'll see you next time on the Passion Witch Project.